For a great cup of joe, there's one thing you should know. Your morning brew can also be playful. Buff Boy Brewing guys make the temperature rise, and you surely feel naughty when you swallow our coffee. If you want some real heat, give your mouth a fine treat. You will want some more, rest assured. Buff Boy Brewing, you can't get enough of.
It's time for The Scribble, your weekly fix of celebrity chats, bizarre stories in the news, and basic random chatter with best-selling author and syndicated radio host Jeremy Bradley. Make sure your seat is in the upright and locked position and your barf bag is securely in place. Here's Jeremy Bradley.
Heyo everybody, Jeremy Bradley here. This is The Scribble. This week we are putting the fun in funeral. How morbid is that? Well, you know what? It's 30 minutes of time-wasting fun. That's what we always promise on this show. And, because I kind of have my family has a really weird sense of humor, we kind of make the most of every situation, whether that's, a wedding, a new baby, or even a death. So that's what we're talking about on The Scribble, and it starts right after this.
Isn't it crazy that you wait for payday, but before you know it, you're strapped for cash again? It's time to stop blowing your money and become a smart spender with the book, The Official Guide to Being an American Cheapskate at cheapskatebook.com. Learn simple ways to cut costs at home every day and during special times of the year. Don't go broke at Christmas. Don't remortgage the house for a fancy vacation. The book is filled with tips to save you money throughout the year. Check out the best-selling book, The Official Guide to Being an American Cheapskate at cheapskatebook.com or on Amazon and iTunes.
Ever had something to get off your chest but never had the balls to say it? That's a load of crap. Speak Free with JB.com is exactly what you've been waiting for. Your chance to tell it like it is and not care what anybody else thinks. Have your say on issues of the day. Join newspaper and radio columnist Jeremy Bradley as he tells it like it is. Hundreds of thousands of people have stopped by, including some well-known celebrities who have had a chat with JB and speak candidly about what's really going on in the world. You can join them too. Have a rant or a rave. Be brave and head on over to www.speakfreewithjb.com now.
JB here on The Scribble. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Now, I know that funerals are, obviously it's a sensitive subject because somebody has died, right? That's going to be a loved one. That's going to be somebody who's not there maybe to support you anymore or whatever they brought to your life. So I want to start out by saying that. Now, I've said on this show, and I started out this show talking about how, we kind of always find the laughter in our family. And so when it comes to something that, could be tragic. Like we've had in the last year, we've had on one side of the family. So combined, let me just count this out. Sorry, we've had about 5 people have a cancer diagnosis. And in that time, my parents are two of them, by the way. So with my mom having, breast cancer and my dad having prostate cancer, that just opened up the floodgates for my brothers and me to kind of make jokes about it. Now, we've had breast cancer in the family for my aunt was, and I've got to go back now. So she died on Christmas the year before I was born. So that would be 42 years ago that my aunt died of breast cancer. And so, we've had her, we've had 2 others in the family have breast cancer since then. My grandpa, which was her dad, had throat cancer. I was probably about 4 or 5 when he had cancer, and he had his voice box taken out. And so he had the hole in his neck, and he talked, by putting that thing to his neck. And so that was very sort of rare at the time. I had never heard of anything like that. Again, I was a fairly young child, so I wouldn't have known very much more than that. But so, yeah, I experienced cancer within my family. And what I mean by that is learning how to cope with it, right? Hearing about what your family member is going through. Obviously not my aunt who died before I was born. I'm saying, from a young age, I knew what cancer was because it was affecting our family. Now, my grandpa had lived for about another, let me think. So if I was about 4 or 5, he died when I was 30, so then he lived almost 25 years with various forms of cancer. See, that he then had it in his mouth, and then it went up to his brain. So my grandpa, despite having it so many years ago, it came back, and then it came back, and then it spread, and then it went up to the brain. And so that's something where, okay, I know what he's dealing with. You kind of see, a grandparent doesn't kind of tell you what's wrong, how he's in pain, things like that, right? He doesn't want to worry the kids. That's maybe what a solid Ukrainian grandpa would do. So perhaps we were lucky in that regard. Now, my parents, on the other hand, my dad will tell you what's going on, and he will tell you everything that's wrong. He will tell you about how horrible the food is in the hospital, and how the doctors and the nurses are just a bunch of bullshit, blah, blah, blah. I mean, that's just my dad. So we'll hear that from him as his treatments go on. But certainly back in the day, 30, 35, 40 years ago, your grandparents, at least a grandpa, didn't burden you with that. That was nothing that you had to worry about as a kid. Just, grandpa's fine is kind of how it was. So, fast forward to present day. Now, we've had 2 funerals, one family member and then one just an acquaintance of mine. But there have been 2 funerals in the last week and a half. Yeah, not quite 2 weeks. So let's say 2 weeks. Let's round up. I've had to go to funerals. Now, think about just even in your regular life. How many funerals do you go to in a year? Maybe one? I'm trying to think. In our family, we probably had a stretch of 10 years where we didn't have a funeral. And we've got 2, like my mom's side and my dad's side are very big families. So, and then you might have, let's say, a coworker loses somebody. So you go, just to support them. So it's, you go to it, but it's not really anything that personally affects you, right? You just go to support others, and that's great too. So in this instance, yes, it was a family member, and then an acquaintance, a family friend, let's say, not an acquaintance. I don't want to make it seem that impersonal, but really it kind of was. So now when we've had a tough family funeral, we will, maybe have a little bit of a nip before we go. My brothers, going back to my grandpa, actually, for his funeral, because we were the grandkids, we went in one of the limos to the funeral home, and I remember my brother having a flask in his jacket, and so we were doing shots of, it was whiskey, I guess, I don't know. I can't remember exactly the brand of whiskey or rye, whatever you called it back then, what he drank, but they did that to honor him. So my brother was passing around the flask in the limo on the way to the funeral home. Or the church, and then the funeral home, and then we were drinking in the church too. but the family found humor in that, right? Because that's something that you would go and say, oh, you know what, that's probably something that he would do. Or my grandma, Baba, we would call her, right? Ukrainian grandma's a Baba. So that's something that, Baba's probably got a flask in her purse too. And you know what? If she did, great. Let her. You let her have a flask and toast her husband of 60-some years, I should point out. She can toast him however the fuck she wants. You do it. And I dare anybody to try and tell her she can't do it. There was no telling Baba, maybe you can't have a drink in church. She's going to do it. She will do it. So that's what I'm saying, is that we would just kind of find the fun in it. Obviously, it's terrible that, yes, my grandma was devastated. I mean, she was practically throwing herself on the casket. I get that, and that's not something that I can unsee. And I still hear her wailing at the sorrow and the mourning that she was in. It was 15 years ago. I still hear it now. So that still does affect me. I want to repeat, I don't want to seem like I'm some heartless asshole in this. But what I'm saying is, leave it to our family to kind of sort of find the fun in it. Where you've got to just laugh, because that's how we've always been as a family. And so that's, we would always end up saying to my grandma, well, do you think that he would want you being miserable and sad? Do you think that he would want you just sitting, right? Because you try to manipulate and go, no, he would want you to live. He'd want you to get out, have a good time, and have fun. And, I think then to my aunt and uncle. My uncle had died of cancer, and him saying to my aunt, they had a conversation before he died, that go out and live. They were planning actually to do like a big European vacation kind of thing, several different countries or whatever. And he said that to her, like, go and do it. Whether it's with one of your girlfriends or, as time passes, if it's with another man, and you be happy, go and live and go and do this. I'm kind of getting goosebumps as I'm telling you this story, by the way. Just go, but don't just sit and mourn. Don't do that. And so, and then I think back to that aunt and uncle. Yeah, they were always, the fun sort of life of the party and silly and goofy and playful, and that makes sense. So this funeral that we had for a family member was, the family member was not, I don't want to use the word popular. That makes it sound like a teenage high school thing. Was, okay, I'm being honest, right? I'm just going to be, he wasn't well liked. There we go. Here, I'm putting it out there. And so, within the days of the passing, which was kind of suspected anyway, he wasn't really taking care of his body. He was significantly overweight. He was not taking medication as prescribed, and whatever. I mean, so somebody like that, you're kind of like, well, he's sort of on a downward spiral anyway. He's doing this to himself, and that's a whole other discussion about what he's leaving behind for his wife and his kid and whatever. But at the end of the day, he's a grown-up. He's almost 40 years old. He can make decisions. He's knowingly not going to the doctor. He's knowingly not listening to the doctor about, losing weight and eating better and whatever. That's on him, right? Sure, it's tragic that the kid's going to grow up without a dad, but at the same time, whatever. And it's a done deal at this point, so there's no turning back. So having that sort of background or that kind of reputation, whatever, knowing that he's that kind of a person, when the family found out that he had died, it was kind of like, I guess we kind of saw this coming, didn't we? Like, it was kind of, so then we all, the cousins and a couple, my siblings, whatever, we all are kind of talking in the days leading up to the funeral going, well, this is going to be really awkward because most people probably don't care to go, and then there's that fakeness where you have to sort of pretend like you're sad and pretend like, and we do feel bad for our aunt and uncle who lost a son. So, there is some compassion there. But I mean, you kind of look at this and go, yeah, dude was pretty reckless with his life. So, and you could also say the same thing about people who, and I know that it's said about people who overdose or people who, speed and do stupid things in their car, then they crash and they die. And then you're kind of like, well, I mean, so it's same sort of situation where this person is knowingly, recklessly living and not taking care of his body. He dies. And so are we supposed to be shocked? Are we supposed to be stunned? And then at a funeral, because this is a family member, are we expected to get up and say something? Because none of us really have great memories of this guy. First of all, we didn't really know him, only aside from his posts on social media that were complaining about his health problems all the time. He was kind of a curmudgeon, didn't work, just, collected welfare or disability or whatever it was. And you're like, well, he wasn't really doing anything in life. He was just sort of existing, but okay, let's feel. So there's this awkwardness when you get to the funeral because obviously the mom and dad are sad. So you hug them and you talk to them and you say you're sorry and whatever. But then during the ceremony, or not ceremony, but the service, we're all kind of looking at each other, whatever, we're saying, they're going, we know that the people don't mean what they're saying, the ones that were asked to speak. And then it's also awkward too because, especially me being the public speaker and the broadcaster in the family, I'm 99% of the time asked to, speak at weddings and funerals and whatever, or MC, a family event. So I was just like, oh my God, I hope I'm not asked. Well, I wasn't, which is perfect. But I mean, I can make it up, but that's, again, so disingenuous because the people who are in attendance would be like, well, Jeremy doesn't really feel this way. This is a struggle. And I mean, I would have liked the challenge. I really would have. I can be an actor. Why not? I pretend like I can give a shit for things. And yeah, actually, now that I talk it through, I'm sort of sitting there going, well, it would have been kind of fun to just sort of just be very dramatic about how I do. And I can weave in some comedy. But now I'm going to have to talk to my aunt and uncle about why I wasn't asked. No, it was the wife that had arranged everything. And we don't really know her really well at all. She probably doesn't even know my name now that I think about it. So during the service, I'm sitting in a row of my cousins, and my parents and my aunt and uncles are in the row in front of us. You know how there's always kind of like that priority seating for the immediate loved ones, and then the family behind, and then the other family behind. And so I was in a row with my cousins. Oh, and no, my brothers were behind my row. But anyway, you can kind of... I'm trying to think about it because I'm comparing when we had The funeral for my grandparents was very quiet. Like, my grandma died during Corona, so we just had a funeral for her, a couple years ago. And I just remember that was, you didn't hear like rustling of candy. You didn't hear, you didn't look to the side and see somebody with their head down looking at their phone. Like, there was just none of that happening with my grandma's. Now, with this one, though, it was almost like people were restless. Like, you were... because I'm laughing because, yeah, I mean, that's... And again, it goes back to the whole thing about, like, how can you expect people to care when you didn't really involve us in your life and you kind of just, lived like that anyway, right? So the funeral was very strange and very awkward. And there were not very many speakers that went up. Even then, the people who did, we didn't know some of them because they were either like the bride's or the widow's family or friends or whoever it was. My uncle went up to talk, but otherwise nobody else from our family went up. So I was kind of like, okay. The room was sparsely, the front couple rows were full with family members, but then the back, I mean, just really not many people were there. And then you have like the reception after, where you go into the other room and they have the fruit and cheese and little sandwiches or whatever. And even that cleared out really quickly because, again, people are going to stick around for the free food in the Ukrainian family. So we go and do that, and you have the chit chat. And I remember at my grandma's that they were almost like kicking us out. It was almost like they were blinking the lights to kick us out because people didn't, it was just a social afternoon. So with this one, it was a complete 180. And I actually, this is funny, my husband wasn't in town, so he didn't, I ended up just going by myself. And a couple of my cousins didn't because they said that they had to work. And I was kind of like, any other family member funeral, they would have taken the afternoon or whatever, the morning off or something, and just gone back to work. People didn't even want to make the effort to go to this funeral. But I just remember feeling so awkward going, I'm kind of just walking around the room and going in circles, talking to people and pretending like I'm interested. And I did a left and right. I look around, saw that nobody was paying attention, and I just laughed. When the coast was clear, I made a break for it. This is one of those things where, you look at the time and you're like, fuck, it's 1 o'clock already. Might as well. I've already been here for 2 hours. Like, let's just go. And I did. I left without even just saying bye to anybody. Because also, too, I realized, like, nobody's paying attention to me. Like, I'm not the star of this thing. I can leave without saying bye. No biggie. And sure as shit, I talked to some family members a couple days later, and they were like, oh, when did you leave? Didn't even say, oh, I'm like, oh, well, I said bye to you. Meanwhile, I didn't. So there was that funeral that was just sort of, it was deliciously awkward because I love something like that where that people like either don't want to be there or it's just strange, awkwardness because how people really feel. And so I'm like, I'll soak that in. I will go and watch that all day long. Unless I've been there for 2 hours and I need to leave and make a break for it. Actually, I think I went for lunch. I didn't like the food that was served. Oh my god, I'm a dick. All right, so that's that funeral. Now I'm going to talk about the other one that we went to that was a little bit more, civil, more subdued. I don't know. I'm at a loss for words just because I'm having fun with this. But I'll talk about that other funeral coming up on the Scribble right after this.
It's never too early to start thinking about your next holiday. Have you checked out Mexico recently? From tequila tasting, swimming with horses, to ziplining through the jungle and watching whales and dolphins in their natural habitat, Puerto Vallarta has it all. Visit mexico.jbonair.com to see all the fun PV has to offer. That's at mexico.jbonair.com for hundreds of photos, interviews, and videos from around the tourist hotspot. Check out mexico.jbonair.com for all the fun. That's mexico.jbonair.com.
Who are the Kardashians feuding with now? What did that little thug Justin Bieber do this time? Who's getting hitched? And who's headed for Splitsville? Hear the latest celebrity news and gossip every day on Entertainment Wrap-Up. The good, the bad, the ugly, but mostly the ridiculously hilarious. It's all recapped in this daily segment at entertainmentwrapup.com. Have a laugh at the expense of the rich and famous when they take themselves way too seriously. It's 3 minutes of time-wasting fun at entertainmentwrapup.com. Check out Entertainment Wrap-Up at entertainmentwrapup.com. Brought to you by Speak Free Books.
JB here, back on the Scribble, putting the fun in funeral and I guess the ass and asshole is what my team has just said in the last couple moments. And so I went to another funeral. This, as I said, was a family friend. It was because I'm like, whatever, it was my sister-in-law's uncle. So I called him a family friend, yes, right? Because he, would come to family get-togethers and whatever. And so he was single, like no kids, actually still lived with his dad. So my sister-in-law's grandpa, right? And nice guy by all accounts. I mean, whatever, just pleasant. I didn't really have much conversation with him over the years. My brother and his wife have been married for, 20, close to about 20 years. And so I've known him for a very long time. Nice guy. And so it's sad because, again, we have a relationship with her, obviously, and then her brother, and then her mom. My sister-in-law's dad died probably about maybe 10 years ago or so of cancer. So her family, they come to Christmas. They've been around a long time, and they're very nice. And so when her uncle died, again, it was one of those things where there was an illness, so it was sort of prolonged. So you kind of knew it was coming, right, when the condition goes downhill, and it was because they had a very small family. They weren't expecting it to be a very big turnout because he didn't really have many hobbies. He was just a very quiet person, and that's fine, and there's people who don't want to have a big funeral either because it's kind of like, just carry on, and so that's what he was. I would say modest would be the word, and they respected that. They honored that. We certainly were going to go, right? I mean, just because whether we're invited or not, right? It's just sort of a support thing, and that's how our family is. I don't know that. Like, none of my extended family, like my dad's side, this would be the other side of the family, none of my cousins or anything from that would have been invited. None of them came. But certainly us, right? Because that's, she's an extension now. My sister-in-law is now an extension of our family. And, we've spent a lot of time with him. And it was very strange because you kind of sit there and go, well, what's the etiquette of, you have a card, but then, like, who is the card for? There's no spouse. Like, do you give the card to the dad because his 60-year-old son just passed who lived with him? Do you give it, do you give it to, like, your sister-in-law? Do you give it to her mom? Or do you give a card for everybody? And then, what do you do, right? So this is somebody who had no dependents, who had no, spouse left behind. So then I'm having that kind of dilemma, and then I start calling around, but then you feel like an asshole for calling around and going, Mom, Dad, are you giving like a card? Are you giving like money or anything? Because are you sending food to them? Are you like, what do you do? Right? It's not like anybody, this is, so I'm sure the dad is going to be really, really upset because this was, his kid living with him for 60 years. So I already had a bit of a panic going into that. And so I go to the funeral, and have you ever had a situation where you're just in the moment and you just say something and then you're like, why did I just say that? So what I mean is I get to the funeral, and there's the receiving line, I think it's called, where you'll have you'll have my, my sister-in-law, her brother, their mom, then the dad, or like the grandpa, you know what I mean? And then, you go through, right? And you shake the hands and you hug and then you do the, so generally people will go, I'm so sorry, right? That's what you say when you see the family. Oh, I'm so sorry, Brian. Oh, Penny, I'm so sorry. Jen, I'm so sorry. Right? Oh, I'm just... Okay, I know that, right? I go into that knowing this. So I go, and I was like, the first one was the sister-in-law's brother, so like the nephew then. And he's older than me, so he's, 40-something. Oh, Brian, nice to see you. And I shake his hand and hug him. And I thought, in that moment, right after I did that, I was just like, oh my God, that was so stupid. That's not what you say. Oh my God, I just said nice to see you. But I said it very solemnly, too. Nice to see you, Brian. And then I knew it, right? Like, right as it came out of my mouth. Stupid, stop, no, wrong. So then I go, and sister-in-law's beside him, right? Sister-in-law. Oh, Jen, nice to see you. Again. I did it twice. Okay, Jeremy, not the, okay, no, wrong. Just, okay, stop, pause. Say sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Okay. The mom is next. Sister-in-law's mom. The sister, right? The sister of the deceased. Penny, nice to see you. What? I can't stop. That's 3 in a row now. 3 in a row. 3 in a row. Okay, now I'm at the dad. Now I'm at the dad who just lost his 60-year-old son. I gotta get it right this time, right? Gotta get it right. Can't get it wrong after all those. It's nice to see you. And I was like, oh my fucking... I just couldn't. So going back to what I was saying in the last segment about me being the public speaker, me being tapped to, MC and host things, I know how to talk, but in a tender moment with mourning loved ones, I'm sitting there going, nice to see you. Hi, Brian, nice to see you. Jen, nice to see you. Penny, nice to see you. Now, here's the thing. Just in that moment, I don't know that, maybe they would have connected that and go, nice to see you. Wow, okay. Because, it's not that I'm super close with them. I don't, I didn't really know much about, Uncle Jeff, but okay. So I don't know. I'm tempted to, in a couple years, maybe I'll ask them and go, do you remember what I said to you when I came to the funeral? Because, whatever. Because you just, you say it and they've heard I'm sorry from everybody already anyway. So it's not like I said, it's about time, hey? I didn't do anything like that. I don't see them very often. I just said, oh, nice to see you, yeah. Because I'm not that type of a person who does the whole, oh, I'm sorry. Like, that's why I said at the very beginning, with our family, we're getting sarcasm. My mom says she's got breast cancer. The jokes are coming, left, right, and center. That's just because that's how we are. And so I was like, oh, okay, well, they know that I'm not the most, empathetic and compassionate person, so that's just JB being JB, I guess. And I didn't say anything insulting, right? Come on. That's how I'm trying to make myself feel better about this. But anyway, certainly, yeah, I was just like, okay, I should correct this. I know that I just said something wrong. And then it happens again and again and again. Yeah. It was pretty awkward. So what are your thoughts on funerals? I'd love to hear have you had kind of any awkward things where you didn't really like the person or you didn't even really know them, but you're made to feel, right? It's a very good test of your acting skills. I will say that. Send me an email, live@jbonair.com, live@jbonair.com. Back on the Scribble right after this.
We hear you chirping. Get scribbling. Tweet up the Scribble at The Scribble Show. Join the discussion with Jeremy Bradley. It's all going down right now on Twitter @The Scribble Show and @thescribbleshow.com.
JB here, back on the Scribble. So, anytime we have a full discussion like we just had, 30 minutes talking about funerals, it's largely the result of a discussion that we have internally here. I've talked about this before. Our team, our broadcast team, we've been together now almost 20 years. So we are much closer than a lot of people are with their own families. And so anything and everything comes up during our discussions. We don't even really have meetings. It's all just kind of sitting around and having conversations just like this. And so it then led to the idea or the thoughts of, have you thought about your own funeral? Have you thought about, like what you want to do? Generally, that's something that people will take into consideration when they are sick, right? When there's, when you know that the end is near. And you'll figure out how you want maybe your assets and something, all that kind of stuff divided, right? But I'm talking about the actual planning of the funeral. What is the content? What happens at the service? Will there even be one? Do you want one? Is it a celebration of life? Are you going to have all those old country songs? Are you going to have Sarah McLachlan in the arms of an angel? Are you going to have, what are you going to, that seems to be the typical one, right? Is there going to be a slideshow? What do you want to do? Or do you kind of put this on the people who are going to be planning it and go and say, I don't fucking care, I'm dead. Well, whatever, whoever's left behind can figure it out. And so that's the reason why I'm saying it, because these are all thoughts and things that were said when we were talking about this. And I jokingly said, I've said for years that we're going to have we're going to have it sponsored by somebody. We're going to have advertisers. We're going to have commercial breaks. We're going to do whatever. And then one of my teammates said, yeah, but what are you going to do with the money? You're not going to be dead. Oh, no. You buy that in advance. It's just like with our radio shows. We sell the advertising in advance. We don't. I've already spent that money. That's fine. That check has been cashed. I'm long gone with your money. So, no biggie. And but yeah, we're going to have production. There's going to be 4 cameras. We're going to do this. We're going to have, again, you gotta have fun. I've never taken life too seriously. Obviously, if you've listened to this show for however many years I've been doing it now, is it close to maybe 10 years? So that's just how I live my life. And yeah, it's going to be tragic and sad for the people left behind, but I got the advertising money, so who cares? I tease. But anyway, send me an email. Tell me your thoughts live@jbonair.com. LIVE. That's ironic, right? During a funeral show. It's not alive, it's live. LIVE, live@jbonair.com. My name is Jeremy Bradley. This is The Scribble. Thanks again for putting up with 30 minutes of time-wasting fun and a little dash of sarcasm. I'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye, everybody.
Want more Scribble? Check out thescribbleshow.com for past shows, celebrity interviews, cheapskate tips, and more. That's at thescribbleshow.com and on Twitter @thescribbleshow. The Scribble is a speak-free media presentation.